Can you imagine losing $2 billion over the course of a decade? Well, somebody did it. Philip Falcone, the hockey player turned businessman who lost his fortune worth billions over the course of 10 years. Let's shed some light on his story. Philip Falcone was born on Bastille Day in 1962. He is the grandson of a Yugoslav immigrant who spent nearly 40 years digging from iron ore at a mine in Minnesota. When Falcone was 6 years old, his father, who was the Chisholm water warden, was charged with misusing public funds. Henry Falcone decided to start over in Iowa, but his wife Caroline did not go along. She stayed in Minnesota to raise young Philip and his 8 older siblings on her own. Like many children who had no luck at home, Philip found serenity in sports, banging around hockey pucks for hours until the lights of the rink went out. Philip was gifted on the ice and led the Chisholm High School Blue Streaks to a 12-game winning frenzy in 1979 that caught the attention of college recruiters. It was ice hockey that gave Philip his first breakthrough. He was recruited to play for Harvard Crimson. He received not only a discounted education in the Ivy League and a college hockey career, but also all the extremely important contacts that made the tough boy an insider on Wall Street. His next big breakthrough came in 2001. After 16 years of trading high-yield junk bonds on Wall Street, Philip received a $25 million investment from Alabama-based Harbert Management Corporation to create a distressed hedge fund, another name for a vulture fund. Distressed investors buy troubled or risky companies and then agitate for a change of management or profitable mergers. 5 years later, he achieved the third stroke of luck. In early 2006, Philip began buying bonds from rundown home builders because he thought mergers would eventually bring nice profits. But industry people on the ground told him that this was not the reality and that the housing market was weak despite the high-flying real estate market. Philip took this as an omen and did a little research himself, to eventually settle on the idea that the real estate market was on the verge of plunging over a cliff thanks to subprime lending. Then, in 2007, everything happened exactly as he had predicted. Philip became a billionaire overnight and wasted no time in upgrading his life. He bought a Gulfstream V private jet, a $39 million oceanfront property in the French West Indies, and the $49 million home of penthouse publisher Bob Guccione in Maine, which is one of the largest private homes in New York City. He also bought 30% of the Minnesota Wild hockey team. After all, Philip Falcone was rich now. Everything was perfect for Philip and his family until they lost their fortune. Falcone had fortunes worth $2 billion a decade ago. However, in 2020, he was representing himself in court, saying he could not afford a lawyer. Philip Falcone became a hedge fund billionaire betting on the subprime mortgage catastrophe. Then, merchants withdrew cash from his agency, Harbinger Capital Companions, after a series of spotty returns. In 2013, he was hit with a 5-year business ban as part of a settlement in which Philip admitted to taking out a $113 million mortgage from each of his funds to pay his private taxes. He and his wife, Lisa Falcone, continued to live extravagantly, but their fortune shrank after various dangerous bets failed to work. A massive bankruptcy was the telecommunications company LightSquare Inc., which went under in 2012. During the time of the SEC settlement, Philip stopped paying many high-ranking Harbinger workers. Various employees began filing lawsuits because they were not being paid. Moreover, New York-based Surrey Cadillacs took him to court, claiming he didn't pay $34,000 for rides in 2014 and 2015, and a $14 million verdict against him. Philip later stated that the verdict was now reduced to gambling. Harbinger bought most of this funding in 2019, but the money was used to cover third-party bills. According to a regulatory application, Harbinger's assets under management amounted to $336 million in 2020. In its heyday, over a decade ago, it managed $26 billion. Philip Falcone has stated that he has not paid his owed money because much of his remaining assets are tied up in these illiquid investments. Getting paid could be a years-long process for collectors of Philip Falcone. Those whose loans are secured by collateral reminiscent of homes and vehicles can promote their property to pay off the debt. Unsecured lenders should look for other properties that are reminiscent of accounts, wages, or real estate from other financial institutions that have not been pledged for other loans. Many of the Falcone's possessions, along with New York homes, artwork, and jewelry, were pledged as collateral for a $73 million mortgage from Melody Enterprise Finance, based on court documents in a case filed by the lenders. Philip Falcone defaulted in 2016, which sparked curiosity among his lenders. He stated in court information that he bought his St. Bart's property in 2019 and paid $29 million for the Melody mortgage. Melody sued Philip Falcone for reimbursement last year, accusing him of selling several works of art to cover the mortgage without giving the proceeds to the lender. Philip explained in a courtroom that Melody was aware of the gross sales of the artworks in question. On one level, Melody tried to send someone to collect the artwork, but was largely ignored or confronted with excuses based on a document submitted by Melody. Melody planned a public sale involving the Falcones' New York properties, but it was certainly stopped and the two sides reached an agreement based on court documents. Philip said in a mail that mortgage stability has now dropped by one shipload. His townhouse in New York Metropolis is under purchase, but Melody's representatives did not respond to requests for comment. Philip's decades-long struggle with the many people he owes money to continues. Another limousine company and a former Harbinger lead official said in the courtroom that Philip owed him cash. Moreover, the American Court Financial Institution stated in court filings that he has an overdue credit card bill of about $200,000. Furthermore, the owner of the building he rents out said in a lawsuit that Philip Falcone owes $4 million in unpaid rents. Philip stated in a text message that he had signed a settlement with the landlord. There is no settlement in the courtroom, and a lawyer for the owner has not responded to a request for comment. Early last year, a creditor took possession of his lakeside home in Minnesota worth about $375,000 with an excellent verdict. Philip Falcone grew up on the site and the property surrounded by comparable houses owned by some of his siblings. He has until the next few months to buy it again based on court documents. He announced that he plans to do so. Ultimately, this is a brief summary of how Philip Falcone went from billionaire to bankrupt. However, critics say Philip Falcone, like a cat with 9 lives, finds ways to live lavishly and pursue new ventures despite his debts. Philip, on the other hand, presents himself in the court documents and in public appearances as a clammy victim whose business success is repeatedly thwarted by forces beyond his control. However, Philip continued to live in his high-end home in New York City, where records showed he was lagging with mortgage payments and property taxes from the city. The official address for his new business is his long-standing office on Park Avenue, where the owner sued him for unpaid rent. And even if all of his fortunes and lawsuits are completely wiped away, Philip still tells people that he's a hockey player and is never afraid to drop the gloves and start all over again.